Hello everyone. Today I'll be sharing with you my recipe on how I like to make Mexican Panderia style Empanadas de Calabaza. Now to get started, I am going to roast 2 pumpkins. Actually, you don't need 2 pumpkins. This is a video from when I did my fresh pumpkin pies, but this is how I make my pumpkin also for my empanadas. And I'm just going to half this pumpkin and I'm going to scrape out all of the seeds from the inside. I'll tell you what, I know a lot of people use pureed pumpkin, but if you can get your hands on fresh pumpkins, especially when it's pumpkin season, that is the way to go when baking. There's nothing like fresh roasted pumpkin. It's so delicious. Now, if it's not pumpkin season and you're like, well, I need to make my empanadas de calabaza and I don't have fresh pumpkins, use butternut squash. I do it all the time. I just think even butternut squash, roasting it, beats using something in a can. That's my personal opinion, but anyways, that's an alternative. So I'm going to be roasting these at 375 degrees for about 60 to 75 minutes. And this is what they look like. And I'm just gonna flip them over and let them cool before I handle them. So I'm going to be using about 1.5 cups of this roasted pumpkin. I'm going to use my whisk and give it a good mash. And if you see any dark flecks or skin, just remove it. Now I'm going to sweeten my roasted pumpkin with piloncillo. And I've actually kind of chopped it. And if you don't know what piloncillo is, I've used it in other videos. Here, this is what it looks like. It comes in a cone shape and it's basically brown sugar cane. You can use brown sugar, but I think piloncillo stays true to the taste that I'm looking for. So I'm going to be using 1/3 cup of piloncillo, which would be probably like 2.5-3 ounces of it. And I'm also going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. I'm also going to be using 1/4 teaspoon of ground anise and a pinch of kosher salt just to balance the flavors out, and I'm just going to give that a good mix. And after you mix it well, you can set it aside. And now I'm going to work on my dough. Here I have 1/4 cup of warm water, and I'm going to be adding 1/2 teaspoon of sugar, and I'm just going to give it a good mix to make sure the sugar dissolves. Okay, now I'm going to be adding 1 teaspoon of active dry yeast. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that into my water sugar mixture, and I'm going to give that a good mix. I'm going to let this set and bloom for about 10 minutes. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes, and as you can see, it has puffed up, which is a good sign that it is alive and active. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to set this aside just for a minute, and now I'm going to work on my dry ingredients. And here I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. And to that, I will be adding 1/2 teaspoon of ground anise, a full teaspoon of ground cinnamon, and 1/4 teaspoon of clove, ground clove. You could also use pumpkin spice if you have that. That actually has a lot of the spices you could use in this. So I'm going to give that a good mix, and now I'm going to add in 1/3 cup of white granulated sugar. I'm going to mix that in there. Now I'm going to add a third cup of room temperature butter. It's very softened, and I'm just going to work the butter in with my fork. Now I'm going to add in my active yeast and just give that a mix with my fork. Now if you notice, I'm only mixing it to like one side of the flour. And the reason for that is because I still need to add salt, and I'm going to add that to the other side of flour. But first I have a third cup of milk, room temperature milk, and 1 room temperature large egg, and I'm going to whisk those together. I also want to mention, when you're making this dough, be sure to bring all your ingredients to room temperature. Make sure the butter is softened at room temperature, you have room temperature milk, and a room temperature egg. Before I add the milk and egg, I'm going to add that salt that I was talking about, and I'll be adding a half teaspoon of kosher salt to one side of the flour just to kind of work it in. I'll just go ahead and add that mixture, and now with my fork, I'm going to mix. And once I give it a good mix with my fork, I'm going to just take any residual butter and wipe my hands with it, rub my hands with it, and now it'll allow me to work with the dough. Now I'm just going to go ahead and mix it up before turning it out onto my work surface. And at this point, when you're working with the dough, it's very tacky. It's still sticky. It's not, all in one piece. It'll still stick to your hands. And do not be tempted to add flour. I repeat, do not add flour. You want to have a tacky dough because that means moisture. Remember, the dough that you're trying to achieve, or that I'm trying to achieve, is a very soft and tender dough. So when you put it on your work surface, work in a small space and just scrape it as you're kneading it. I'm going to be kneading it for 10 minutes. And again, use the heel of your hand. Don't use your fingers. It's going to stick to the heel of your hand, and that'll allow you to keep track of all your dough. You don't want to lose it all over the place. So just work in a small, tight work surface and just keep scraping and kneading. I know you will be tempted to add flour, but again, I beg of you, do not add it. You want a tacky dough. And even when you're done kneading after 10 minutes, it's still going to be tacky. I've had empanadas before, like homemade ones, and the dough is hard. And I'm like, that doesn't taste like the kind that I get at my Mexican bakery. So this is why I'm making the dough this way, because I want to eventually achieve that pan dulce dough that you get with your empanadas de calabaza. So hopefully, if you stick with me and if you stick with the recipe, that's what you'll end up with too. So I'm done kneading my dough. I'm going to cover it with cling wrap. Now, I'm not going to let the dough double. I'm just letting it rest for 30 minutes because I don't want a loaf of bread. I just want a nice soft dough. So after 30 minutes, this is what it looks like. And it did rise a little bit, but it did not double. So again, 30 minutes is all you need to let your dough rest. So here I have some extra flour, and now I'm going to flour my surface to be able to work with it. And I'm going to divide the dough into 12 equal pieces. Okay, so now I'm just going to show you how I roll it out, and you want to make sure you flour your surface. At this point, you can add flour because you want to be able to work with your dough. So I'm adding flour. I'm going to add flour to my rolling pin, and I'm going to roll it out almost like a tortilla. I'm going to roll it out into a round disc. Now you might be wondering, why is she rolling it out so thin? Well, remember, this has active yeast in it, so it's still going to puff up. But if I were to leave it thick, then I would end up with just like a hard roll filled with my calabaza or my pumpkin filling. So that's why I'm rolling it out thin like this, because it's still going to puff up. Now I'm going to add about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half of filling. You don't want to go more than that for these sizes, because then it'll just spill out. It'll be too much. So just to give you an idea of what I'm working with, it's about a tablespoon to a tablespoon and a half. Now I'm just going to fold it over, and nothing fancy schmancy. I'm just going to twist and push the dough in on itself so that it can close. And I'm just going to continue doing that until I'm done with a dozen. And when you're done making all of your empanadas, you can also brush them with melted butter on top or with an egg wash. You could also brush them with whole milk or heavy cream, and this will let them brown, the tops brown, and get a deep, rich golden brown color. But I don't do that. I just like to bake them as is. And I will be baking these in a preheated oven of 350 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 to 13 minutes. As always, the recipe will be located in the description box below. It's been 13 minutes exactly, and now my empanadas are done. And if you can help yourself, let them cool off for about 10 minutes. But here they are. Here are my soft dough empanadas de calabaza, or pumpkin empanadas. And I just want to show you what the dough looks like from the inside. Nice, tender, soft dough, just like the panderias. So I hope you give this recipe a try. I hope you like it, and thanks for watching. Hey guys, you can click on the video icons for more recipes, or you can click on my picture icon to subscribe. Thanks for watching.